Hello, I'm Kim Sauer, SMTAI in Rosemont, Chicago. I'm with JP McDaris from the Entrada Group. Now, the Entrada Group, very interesting because there's a lot happening traditionally, obviously, with the Chinese market, but it's developing very strongly into the Mexican market. So let's look at that history and focus on China first. How did that all emerge before we actually come to Mexico?
Well, it's very interesting talking about the evolution of both markets, and kind of what we saw is in Mexico a few decades back, you would see a lot of the lower cost, more intense activities being taken out of the Mexican market. A lot of that stemming mostly textiles and things of that nature going to China. Obviously, we saw the same happen in the U.S. and in North America, really, Canada as well. I think what this did was really forced Mexico to shift on the types of product that they're going to produce. And what we see here is there's a shift from textiles or lower value product into a product that has a much more value in it, for instance, electronics. So, you know, a part of that history, what that happened at that point is the Mexican government really was forced to develop the talent and the labor skills. And so what we see is jobs moving from North America to China, Mexican government realizing that they cannot compete on those types of wage rates in that time, and really having to focus on developing what they do in the trade schools, developing polytechnical institutions, really focusing on the types of labor that they're able to offer investment or investors coming into their country. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
So very much, China obviously was seen as a low-cost manufacturing base, but then all the shipping costs came into it. Now the trade wars that are going on are probably a big factor as well. So Mexico really emerging as an alternative, as a reshoring, as a closer to your market type of manufacturing base.
Correct.
So let's focus on Mexico, therefore. You've mentioned some of the gaps that are starting to be filled. What makes Mexico today an attractive base as your next manufacturing proposal?
Right. Well, interesting again, talking about history and talking about the development of Mexico. I really think that we've learned a lot of lessons from China. A lot of the companies who are establishing in Mexico today, they do have a Chinese footprint, or they have in the past. And I think one of the biggest issues, proximity to market. I think this has been a huge issue for companies and clients. Even before the tariff wars even started, they would have product for months on end in a container, sometimes getting stuck at the Chinese import-export regime. So there's a lot of issues, especially for small to medium-sized companies that are really dependent on meeting the demands of the OEMs or the major tier ones and getting their product there on time. Mm-hmm. I would also say, you know, not only proximity to market, but also as an executive or as a technician or an engineer who has to retool a shop. You could be on several planes, trains, taxis to get to your plant in if you're sort of deep off the coast in China. Whereas in Mexico, our clients, they can leave home at 6:30 in the morning and be in the plant at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. This is great for the executives who have to inform and bring the leadership down to that plant. It's also very important, engineers, technicians, and people who have to make that plant run. Mm-hmm. So this is also a big advantage.
So in terms of industries, Mexico is very strong in automotive. Are there particular industries that are coming up behind automotive? Is automotive developing even further? Where's the development there?
Yeah, so automotive is really taken off, and I think everyone thinks of Mexico. We say there are many Mexicos in Mexico. Everyone thinks of Mexico as the border. Juarez, Tijuana, some of the very important manufacturing cities that have been around for 30, 40 plus years. What's really happening in Mexico is there's a shift more towards the central portion, what we call the Bajío, or underneath the border region. There are huge investments. Automotive-wise, you see companies like Honda, Toyota, Mazda, Volkswagen. GM now has 2 plants in the area, BMW, right? So we're getting a lot of the German OEMs coming in as well. But I think one industry that's really coming up as well is aerospace. We've got a new cluster in the state of Querétaro that is based around Bombardier, has brought in a lot of major tier 1 suppliers, Safran and Meggitt, to name a few of them. But these, I would say aerospace has really taken off, but the need for the electronic suppliers and the EMS companies to come in and support these industries has just become large. One thing to think about in automotive, right? The number of sensors and the number of the amount of electronics that now go into a standard regular automobile have changed dramatically, and so we're seeing a huge influx of European and American, Canadian companies that have to be there to meet the demands of the tier 1s and the OEMs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Quite a complex theme, I suppose, for a lot of decision making to take place for international investment. Now, the Entrada Group has done a lot of research for that. You do have a white paper as well, which sort of broadens that subject and goes into more depth. How can we get hold of that?
Well, thank you for asking. Actually, anyone can go to our brand new website. It's at www.entradagroup.com. We do have a resource tab up at the top, I believe the top right. Go in there and you can find our electronics manufacturing white paper, as well as many other educational white papers. A lot of different information, maps on industry per industry to find out where OEMs and other main tier 1 suppliers are. It's a wealth of resources, and it's very useful for manufacturers that are interested in gaining more knowledge on Mexico and its strengths.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time and for opening up Mexico to us.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.